Happy Monday, football fans. You have found the Behind the Lines podcast presented by BetMGM. My name is Stephen Andress, joined each and every week on this show by Christian Cipollini, sports trader at BetMGM. And in this episode, we are going to give you the updated odds for the Super Bowl, and it is a fun storyline at this point now that we are down to the Final Four. We're going to look back at the week that was betting in the divisional round, the public wins, the public losses, look ahead to those AFC and NFC championship game opening odds over at BetMGM. And we will be sure to somehow maintain our friendship, Christian, even though that my 49ers and your Philadelphia Eagles are meeting in the NFC championship here, my friend.
That is right. That is right. We got what we hoped for.
Absolutely. So let's start with the Super Bowl odds. We usually save this for the end, but it's compelling at this point with the Buffalo Bills, who were short favorites for much of the season, getting knocked out now. And then you throw in Patrick Mahomes' high ankle sprain. And I don't have, we're always a product of the moment. It's hard to remember back historically, and I'm going to be excited to look into this, but Eagles plus 260, Chiefs plus 260, Bengals plus 270, Niners plus 300. I can't remember a time where there's really been no big favorite or even big long shots when we get to the Final Four here. It's really up for grabs at this point.
Yeah, I mean, we've gotten super lucky this season that these four teams were for the best almost the entire season, and showing here. Patrick Mahomes' injury, of course, is the big one here. I know we've already been taking some Bengals money just off the back of that. That's really the only big question mark, and from there, all four teams without a doubt have a chance to win. You can see all four of these teams winning easily.
Is it accurate to say that high ankle sprain for Mahomes is really the reason why they are not in a tier by themselves at the top of the futures board at this point?
Yeah, right now it's like every team is like together. They would be slightly ahead. It shows by the line, as we'll get to that in a minute. But the Chiefs are small favorites right now, and they'd obviously be a point or two more favorites if we knew for sure he's 100% good to go.
So what is the book rooting for at this point? I'm sure the Bills losing was a good result for you guys with all the money you've taken ever since this market opened at last offseason. So at this point, with these four teams left, where is the liability? What are you guys rooting for?
Yeah, so one of the first episodes, we actually talked about how the Bills had double the next closest team in money, and that actually stayed true almost the entire season. So the Bills losing was the one thing the book was really hoping for. Got it a little bit earlier than we'd like. So now at this point, we're actually looking okay on most. The Bengals are an issue for the book. The Eagles to win the AFC or the NFC is still a problem for the book. So I think we'd want a Chiefs 49ers Super Bowl at this point, but we're probably not too bad on either one because we do have a lot of home states in play here with Pennsylvania, Kansas, and Ohio new launch. So we're kind of looking good either way at this point.
That Bengals liability that's formed, is that a kind of a late breaking development here? And how much of it was because Ohio launched legal sports betting on January the 1st?
Yeah, a lot of that actually did stem from the Ohio launch. And then there was a lot of what a lot of people were doing yesterday, as we saw a bunch, was if you, instead of taking it on the money line, we saw a lot of people just betting the futures market for the team they like in that Bills-Bengals game. So the Bengals were still 10-1 going into that game, and we did see a decent amount of futures action on there too. So a lot of that came in play, but certainly a lot of the Ohio market.
Man, the fact that we have four of the best six teams that we thought were the best top six all season long at this point is going to make for an awesome championship weekend. I think it shows in the lines. They're tight. We'll talk about those in a moment, but let's first look back at the divisional round games, Christian, and take us through these here. Which ones were public wins and which ones were public losses, since we only had four of them?
We had 2 and 2, two public wins, 2 public losses, actually. So I'll start with the ones for the book. It was the Eagles and the Cowboys, or the Eagles and the 49ers were both good outcomes for the book. We had a ton of Giants action. So the Eagles blowing them out was a good outcome. And then yesterday, people were all over the Cowboys. I was kind of shocked by the amount that came in. And it was that was by far our biggest winner of the weekend. And then on the flip side, we were taking a ton of Bengals money at that +6. A really interesting line for how it ended up shaking up. A lot of people were talking of it being, some sort of a trap line, things like that. But we were still taking a lot of Bengals money, so that one ended up a loser for us. And then Chiefs Jaguars, also that backdoor cover wasn't ideal for us. We actually ended up taking a couple big bets towards the end on the Jags, and the action was still coming in at that high number. I think we talked about that a bit throughout the season. The Chiefs being a double-digit favorite hadn't really worked out for that well for them most of the season.
Yeah, for sure. Were you taking Bengals money throughout the week, or was it really late when that 6 popped?
We were still taking it throughout the week. A lot of that for us was this new Ohio market, but it was around -4, 4.5 for a decent chunk of the week, and we were still taking Bengals money. But the sharp people were still telling us taking the Bengals, so the line kept shifting the other way.
All right, let's look forward now to the conference championship game weekend, Christian, and we will begin with the early game, which is the NFC championship at 3 o'clock Eastern time. The San Francisco 49ers on the road at the Philadelphia Eagles. Take us through the opening odds here over at BetMGM.
So, yeah, things have changed recently. We did talk about we were looking ahead to this possible matchup, and it was looking like it was going to be closer to a pick'em, but some recency bias in here. We did open up at Eagles -1.5, but we're up to Eagles -3 now.
Wow.
A little juice to the 49ers. The 49ers -115 on that +3. Total's 45.5. But, yeah, we are getting a little bit of movements going towards the Eagles.
Recency bias, I think, is the exact proper term here, Christian. You hit the nail on the head with what they showed against the Giants and then what the 49ers showed against the Cowboys. I'm a bit surprised that the Eagles are getting steamed this hard all the way to the key number of 3. We'll see if there's some buyback here as the week goes on the 49ers. But I think all of us in the betting community were pretty clear in the fact that the Eagles were not playing one of the 3 best teams this week. They had the 3rd easiest schedule by opponent win totals this year. They had the best possible path to get to this point, the easiest possible path to get to this point, really, and getting to face the 6 seed Giants, who just don't have a roster as good as the top teams in the conference here. So you guys have had the 49ers ever since Brock Purdy showed that he's competent in this offense. You guys have had the 49ers rated higher than the Eagles on a theoretical neutral field, right?
Yeah. I mean, that was up until before the game yesterday. The 49ers were still, trending towards being closer to the favorite. Going into the Eagles game, the 49ers were still the favorite to win the NFC. But yeah, that flipped off these last 2 games there, where, I guess the 49ers and Purdy didn't, they weren't world beating. Not necessarily bad, but didn't look world beating. Where on the flip side, the Eagles, just crush the Giants out there. Yeah. So a lot of that definitely has to do with that. I wouldn't think, my guess is I wouldn't think it goes much past where we're at now on the Eagles +3. It probably comes back a little. It's probably going to flip back and forth between 2.5, 3. Most of the week would be my guess.
Yeah, I'm with you there on that. If I had to take a guess now on what the closing line is going to be here, I'd probably say 2.5. But And admittedly, I am looking very hard at this 3, Christian, on the 49ers, and I'm pumping the brakes a little bit because I don't want my fandom bias to creep in here and just rush to the window and make this bet. Because one of the compelling stats I've already found for this game this week is that the Eagles' rushing offense, when Jalen Hurts is on the field, has been out of this world. First in rush EPA. And the gap to second place in rush EPA is the same as the gap from 2nd to 18th. And the Eagles are also first in rush success rate. And the gap between first and second in that metric is the same as the gap between 2nd and 14th. That's how good the Eagles' rushing offense and how dominant their offensive line has been. The 49ers are number 2 in the league, stopping the run in both of those metrics. But, I mean, that is compelling stuff from the Eagles' offense and that offensive line. So I'm pumping the brakes a little bit here. I'm not rushing to the window. I'm going to have to make a decision here quickly, I think, if I'm going to want this 3 on the 49ers. I'm already pretty in deep on 49ers futures already, so I might just let those ride. But, if I make an early week bet on this game, you can find it in our Discord channel. You can hit the Discord button in the top right-hand corner of TheLines.com homepage. AFC Championship game now, Christian. 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time kickoff. Cincinnati going to Kansas City. No neutral field game now. Cincinnati barking to everybody in the league office to send those refunds for the Atlanta game. What are we looking at here in terms of opening lines for this one?
So we've been flipping back and forth a little this morning. Obviously, the Mahomes injury is in play here. It looks like he's going to play, but how bad is the injury is something we'll look at towards the week. But right now we're at a pick 'em. We did open at Chiefs -1.5, but we're back to a pick 'em now. So this one will definitely be interesting to watch for. And the total's 47.5.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if this kind of bounces around those numbers that are under 3, right? Like that happens sometimes. Mm-hmm. They're not really significant numbers. They're basically money line bets at this point. That when you're living under 3 here, that happens a lot, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I would imagine this week, this one is going to just kind of bounce ping pong back and forth. The Bengals might go to the favorites for a bit to come back to the Chiefs. A lot of it will stem on news that we get throughout the week of, how well Patrick Mahomes is looking in practice and where he's trending on playing and how much that ankle is going to affect him.
Our injury expert, Will Carroll, will be on the website this week with a column with his breakdown of how effective he thinks Patrick Mahomes can be playing a week after a high ankle sprain. I'm going to go out on a limb and say he's not going to paint a real positive picture about that, given what we've seen with other high ankle sprains throughout the league being multiple week injuries that have benched guys. So we'll see.
Right.
Sure go ahead, Christian.
Even though he did play, like a lot of that is the next day. Mm-hmm. Suddenly that changes significantly. You're kind of able to play on it as the game's going. They can tape it up and give you some treatment for it. But it's usually the leading weeks after that is where it gets tough. He's definitely going to be hurting, it appears.
I want to ask you a little bit about, what this line means right now, because week 13, these two teams played in Cincinnati, and I believe the closing line was Kansas City -2.5. So neutral field, let's say 3.5, 4 for Kansas City over Cincinnati. Obviously, the Bengals have shown that they are one of the best teams in the league at this point, so you're going to get a natural upgrade in power rating there, I should say. So maybe 3, 2.5 on a neutral here, if we're going with current ratings on the Bengals. So now we have to figure out how much to downgrade the worth of Patrick Mahomes, right? And most quarterbacks among the top tier are worth at least 6 points to the line. I'm going to assume Patrick Mahomes is worth more than that if he doesn't play.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If it was Chad Henne, this Bengals would be at least 3-point favorites at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you deal with that now with this situation where the assumption is clearly that he's going to play, but nobody knows how effective he's going to be? You guys are basically taking money here, and it seems like the number's kind of living in that middle zone of it's not going to be 100% Patrick Mahomes, but he's still going to play.
Yeah, we'll keep the limits, somewhat low, but it is a AFC championship game, so it's not going to be too low. But if you do think at this point that's going to hurt Mahomes, you got a great number on the Bills, and if you do think that Mahomes is going to play great, you're getting a couple extra points your way too, because if he was fully 100%, they're probably closer to 2.5, 3 in this game.
I would imagine
a lot of these changes too was this the Bengals offensive line. That was the big question mark going into the Bills game. That's why they ended up being 6-point dogs as they closed. But last year their offensive line wasn't very good, and they showed yesterday that it didn't really matter. Joe throws the ball pretty quick.
Yeah, there was a 3 on the board at one of your competitors on Sunday night for all of about 3 minutes. It did not. It was a bad line.
Yeah, it
was wrong. Bengals backers ate it up immediately with the Patrick Mahomes situation. So, I think this is probably not. I don't know what to expect here, because if Mahomes practices, then this probably moves a little bit more towards the Chiefs. But if he doesn't practice, we're probably seeing Bengals as a small favorite here.
Yeah.
And we're going to be bouncing around all week. We're in no man's land here.
Yep, that's exactly right. That's how this will go from the week. We'll get little nuggets of how his practice is going, and then you'll see the line start shifting one way or another.
All right, so if you're interested in betting this game and you already have a side in mind that you want, that's what you need to keep in mind and pay attention for. So that's how you're going to probably be able to get the best of the line. You got to know what's coming here and how it's going to work. So play that back if you want on YouTube, figure out your strategy, or if you're listening to us on the podcast feed, and figure out when the best time is to time that bet in on if you're going to bet the Bengals or the Kansas City Chiefs. All right, Christian, gentleman's bet here between your Eagles and my 49ers. Loser has to wear the other team's hat on our Super Bowl pod.
Let's do it.
All right, I'm in, man. Should be fun. Going to be a good one for sure.
Should be for sure. I'm feeling good, though. I think you're going to be wearing the Eagles hat.
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a little nervous, man. I was nervous about the Cowboys. They didn't look clean, and these metrics from the Eagles with Jalen Hurts on the field are eye-popping to me. So I am quite nervous about this. Final thoughts here for you just going into this weekend. I mean, this is, to me, really compelling football with how closely matched all four of these teams are at this point.
Yeah, it should be an awesome weekend. I think in this Eagles-49ers, Purdy is obviously going to be the X factor. I think if he plays kind of like he did yesterday, that we might be seeing an Eagles win. But if he plays like he did the previous few weeks, it'll definitely be an interesting close game. I think no matter what, it's going to end up being a close game. These are probably the two most complete teams, the Eagles and 49ers.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, I mean, we get Joe Burrow versus Patrick Mahomes again, which was, one of the best games of all time last year. So it should be a great weekend.
Cannot wait. The last observation I'll have is that we are in the final four teams of the NFL. 3 of them have low-priced quarterbacks that have allowed their rosters to build up everywhere else with that small cap hit on their quarterback. And the other one has the best quarterback of this generation so far. So you want to build a roster to get to this point? Do it in your quarterback's rookie contract window. That's my lasting impression at this point. For Christian Cipollini, I'm Stephen Andress. Thanks for watching. Best of luck with your bets this week for the AFC and NFC championship games.